Our story of how KoAloha started making ukulele, it's kind of interesting or unique in that Dad is actually a musician by trade. So he went through a bunch of things and came full circle and came back to making instruments and back to music. So first memories was Dad teaching oboe at our house, and I remember we used to go watch him perform. He used to play in the Royal Hawaiian Band, and then Dad decided he didn't want to do music anymore, and so the logical choice was he started an acrylic fabrication business out of the garage of our house with no experience. He stuck with that from about 1981 till 1995. And in 1995, he got a visit from his old boss. So one of the legendary ukulele players, Ohta San, was what he was known as in Waikiki.
I was well into plexiglass, inventing all these spam musubi makers, the dish drain. And then one day, my son tells me, Dad, we have to close. And I said, what do you mean close? We're busy. He says, you don't understand, you don't pay the bills and all that. And so I said, oh, wow. One day, there's a knock on the door, and then lo and behold, it's my former boss. I open the door, hey, Herb, what's up? So he comes inside, and then we talk about old times, the nightclub days. After our talk, I'm escorting him to the door, and he turns around, he looks at me. His final parting words were, yeah, you should make a miniature ukulele. You're gonna make plenty money. Bye. And he just left.
Dad just couldn't shake the thought of, I need to make an ukulele. And, no matter what he did, he would try to just not think about it. He just kept having this recurring thought. He decided to make a miniature, which was fully to scale, fully playable, but like this big. So it was just under 5 inches from the top of the headstock to the bottom of the body. And so Dad started stressing out because he's like, well, I already don't know how to make an ukulele, but I know I need to make this mini one, but I have no idea where to get the parts, to get the tools. He came into work, he just needed a quiet space to think, and it was on the weekend. And as he was kind of thinking and pondering and, thoughts were stewing in his brain, this guy out of the blue comes to knock on the door. And the funny thing is my dad usually doesn't get the door like ever. He will hide in the shop and ignore that door. But he decided to answer the door that day. The guy turned out to be a jewelry manufacturer's rep selling miniature tools to manufacture jewelry parts, which can also be used to make miniature parts for ukulele.
That's how KoAloha started. The miniature, teeny tiny ukulele. And from that mustard seed, if you will, came the regular size. You can label it serendipity, you can name it whatever. I call it a miracle.
So one of the things we're known for is our sound and playability, and a large part of that is due to Dad being a musician.
I knew absolutely nothing, nada, zero, about how to build an ukulele.
So when he started building ukulele, having no experience was almost an advantage. He didn't really formally study, and the way that he approached it was he actually took some other old ukulele, cut them in half with a bandsaw, looked at them, measured them, figured it out, and almost like reverse engineered it as the base to how we started. So when I asked him, I said, hey Dad, how come, why didn't you just take a class? It would have been so much easier. They would have taught you not only the process, but the tools that you need, sourcing materials, etc. And he's like, nah, if I did it that way, I would have been locked into a certain thinking that it has to be done this way. It's been done this way for this long, and this is why we do it this way. And so he wanted to just figure it out because he wouldn't have been bound by precedent and things that have come before us.
Yeah, so I love to invent too. So my goal was in building an ukulele that was equal to the world famous Kamaka ukulele. And I even went as far as saying, if I can go one up, even better, I'm going to go for it, So I used all of my background in reed making, the oboe reeds, to play, because that has to do with, you can make your own sound, this type of stuff. employed those principles to the internals of the ukulele and all that. And lo and behold, one day I was totally satisfied. Said, this is a unique KoAloha sound. And so KoAloha is basically famous for its sound, you know. You want to hear Hans, huh? Yeah, it's like.
It's so cool because it started with Dad, and my brother and I joined him in the beginning, and it was like the three Okami boys, right? And you know, we fought a lot, and I mean, we really like fought a lot in the beginning, and we reached this balance between Dad, my brother, and I, and not a lot of families get to work together and not hate each other and really enjoy doing what they do. So what's really cool is my brother's kids and my son also work here, and it's what they chose to do. You know, it wasn't like forced upon them where, you know, it's like you're gonna take over the business. And from a very early age, we told them, if you wanna do ukulele, you can do ukulele. You wanna be a garbage man, you can be a garbage man. You want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. You do what you want to do, right? Follow your passion in life. But you know, ultimately, all three decided, hey, we want to come over here and make ukulele with you guys. So they're young, they're on fire, they're just, you know, they have this energy of youth that they bring to the company, right? So yeah, it's such a cool job, you know, other than I love the craft itself, but I get to work with my family. It's actually made us closer, you know, and oftentimes business, when business and family intersect, it can very easily be a formula to either break apart the business or break apart the family, you know, and it's very hard to kind of separate those things. But for us, you know, we found a formula, a balance that works, and yeah, it's truly a family business, and we love each other, we love coming in, and it's the greatest thing in the world.
Beautiful, huh?